Hello, Scrufftards. Welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And let's explore if women can fight in a war. So, why this video? Well, the Swedish Armed Forces began an online campaign the other day, or was it today even, to highlight that female soldiers are just as capable as their male colleagues, despite what online trolls and keyboard warriors might think about it all. And just to point out that they are ready and willing to risk their lives to protect democracy and people's right to have an opinion, even if they don't agree on having women in the armed forces, right? And that obviously attracted the trolls, and because of that, I figured why not make a video. So we will take a brief look at a few mentions of women that have taken part in war uh, throughout the history. And since we're talking about Sweden and female warriors and soldiers, why not begin with the Vikings? And of course, several women are mentioned in the sagas, and they are described as shield maidens. They are portrayed as fierce warriors and competent leaders in battle, and many of them are seeking vengeance, and many of them are described as being pirates, conducting piracy, uh, being in charge of longships and conducting raids on villages and enemies and what have you. Uh, so yes, the legends for the most part, since we're talking about the sagas, but we have burials that have been found, including at the famous Swedish Viking town of Birka, where Norse women have been buried with weapons. Were they actual warriors, or were they just wealthy individuals who received the honor of being buried with their weapons? Who know? No one knows. Uh, but I think everyone agrees that they may not have been extremely common, but it wasn't uncommon for having the occasional woman taking part in battles and in combat during the Viking Age. And these women may or may not have been referred to as shield maidens. So, uh, 1,000 years ago, more than 1,000 years ago, it was a concept, it was a thing to have female warriors running around. Not that many of them, but a couple. And so the concept wasn't unknown even in the Viking Age. And now we're jumping ahead roughly 800 to 1,000 years from the Viking Age to 1790 and the Battle of Svensksund, a battle during the wars between Sweden and Russia, and this battle took place in the Gulf of Finland. And during this battle, we find three women, no less, whose actions in the face of the enemy would earn them the respect of their superiors, and they would even earn recognition from the king himself. We have Britta Hagberg, who served as a soldier disguised as a man in the elite lifeguards until she was exposed after having been wounded in combat on the ship Styrbjörn. And then Anna Maria Engsten, she managed to get a sinking ship through a Russian blockade, refusing to abandon the vessel. And both Hagberg and Engsten would receive a medal for valor at sea for their actions. And represented on the image here is Dorothea Maria Lösch, or Lösch maybe. When all officers of the vessel Armida had been killed, she took charge of the ship for the remainder of the battle. And for her actions, the king himself granted her the rank of captain, and she became the first woman in the Swedish Navy to receive the honor of captain. And if you're interested in what went on during this battle, what led up to the battle, and how it all ended, I have actually made a video about it, and I'll see if I remember to provide a link. And the video is Svensksund, when the Swedish Navy sunk the entire Russian Navy in one single engagement. So I highly recommend it, and please check it out. But at the start of the century, we have another strong female character in Swedish history, this time during the Great Northern War that was fought between 1700 and 1721. And here we have Ingela Gatenhjelm and her husband Lars, who both served Carolus Rex, no less, as legitimate privateers during the Great Northern War, operating out of the port of Gothenburg. Lars died in 1718, and Ingela took over the business altogether and continued as a privateer in the service of Sweden until peace prevailed in 1721. And she made a name for herself as being involved in all aspects of the business, and is even said to have been the mastermind behind some of the more daring raids that she and Lars undertook. So it is no wonder that she has become known in history as Kapadrottningen, the privateer queen. And Ingela is only one example of women turning to piracy in history. All over the world we have similar stories of women being part of pirate crews, being captains of pirate ships, and even commanding entire fleets of marauders. But it is not just in ancient history that we find women doing their part on the battlefield. We can also find evidence of this in more modern times, and especially during the devastation of World War II, where Russia had some 800,000 female soldiers in their ranks, and 70% of them served in combat roles. And most famously, they made excellent snipers, and the female marksmen were feared by the German troops. And even more recently, the Kurds created their first all-female units in 1995, and by 2014, women made up 40% of Kurdish forces, at least 25,000 strong, fighting for various Kurdish groups. So Kurdish women have engaged in combat against forces belonging to Turkey, Iraq, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS. So the argument that women cannot fight in a modern war is quite simply ridiculous. Human history is full of examples of women fighting in wars side by side with men, and also leading successful campaigns on both land and sea. Are all women suited for soldiering? No, of course not. But neither are all men. That is why you have trials and tests to weed out those who are not suited to serve in the military. Sweden handpicks 6,000 conscripts each year out of an annual batch of 100,000 young adults. The most motivated, the most intelligent, and the most physically capable are selected. And women are among them. So you can imagine, if you're a woman that has been handpicked to be among those 6,000 selected out of 100,000, that she is probably more suited than most men to serve in the armed forces. Perhaps the best example of all is Petra Malm, the first woman to become an operator of the Swedish Elite Special Forces Unit, SOG, said to be on par with SEAL Team 6 and the SAS. If a woman can meet those harsh requirements and do that kind of work, then women sure as hell can be ordinary infantry. And I actually have a video about the SOG, and I mentioned Petra Malm a little bit in that. So please check that video out if you have the time for it. And yeah, and on a final note, the bullet doesn't care who pulls the trigger. And as we wrap this up, I would like to quote the ancient Spartans. The queen of the Spartans had a visitor, a woman, who asked her, "Why is it that you Spartan women are the only women that act as lord over your men?" And the Spartan queen replied, "Because we are the only women that are mothers of real men." So if you have a problem with female warriors, you may want to rethink that, because Swedish women, they're pretty awesome. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.